I think we can all agree that game delistings are a bad thing. Even the worst games deserve to be available. But some games might deserve to be delisted. Deserve to be forgotten. Some games go just beyond what society should even allow to be seen by people of all ages. Some games are just pure evil. And one company decided their game was just that. Pure evil. You can't buy it anymore. And soon, you won't be able to play it. They won't allow you. What game, you may ask, is so heinous, so vile, that it deserves to be lost media? That it deserves to never be even uttered again? WBSC Power Pros. On February 8th, 2023, Nintendo aired a Nintendo Direct, and towards the end, they had announced Power Pros was being localized once again. I thought it was pretty cool, especially cool considering it came out the same day at $1. I was already considering giving it a shot, but for $1, I mean, what do I lose? I mean, some dignity, but who cares about that nowadays? Certainly not me. So I downloaded it, and something just clicked with me. What I thought would be a shoddy throwaway, here fine, we made Power Pros in the West again, turned out to be pretty fun. It was not perfect by any means, which I'll get into soon, but fun. So of course, being a prominent member of my school's Nintendo club at the time, I spread the word. We, yes we, were hopping on WBSC Power Pros Baseball. I think I contributed like 10 copies of sales because of this, so you can't say I didn't help. We all played it for like a week before eventually the time passed, and as all good things, they came to an end. Of course, every once in a while, I'll open the game to relive the good old days of 2023. One of these times, I went to revisit, and the whole game was in Japanese for some reason. I knew enough Japanese that I could get around and find the setting to change it, but it was still odd. I assumed the cause of this was because at launch, all the names of the characters were written in Japanese, and in a patch they changed them to English. So I think my game saw that I had a team with Japanese names and reverted to its natural form. Then finally, one day I got a notification from my phone. And as every sane person does, I have tweet notifications on for Wario64 on Twitter. And all of a sudden, I see the worst possible news I could ever have. Power Pros was shutting down, and will no longer be available for purchase. I was heartbroken. It doesn't even make sense. It can be played offline just fine. They just won't let anyone buy it soon. Hell, by the time this video comes out, it'll be delisted. And so I entered mourning. I've always wanted to talk about this game, but now it'll be in the form of an obituary. Even worse, they announced the new Power Pros game at the Partner Showcase in February 2026, and it was only in Japanese again. I have failed you, Power Pro-kun. That brings us to now, where I wanted to give this game a good second look, from its design to weird localization, to the weird existence of this in the first place. Firstly, I want to talk about the localization. I find it so interesting. Mostly because they chose the worst possible font you could possibly type in English. Every word is so spaced out it makes it really hard to read, and I really cannot wrap my head around why it looks like this. I know it's a low effort port, but surely you can make the English language look good. Especially in the online mode where all the commentators are talking and their dialogue is spaced out. I just can't read it, it's so hard. Speaking of commentators, in-game, there are voice commentators and they're just still in Japanese. Which honestly I'm fine with. I don't want to sound place Japan, but I much prefer the Japanese commentators to US baseball commentators any day. They're a lot more fun. The localization also has some oddities with the names. When it first released, the names of the characters were just in Japanese, which made it really hard to find certain characters, but eventually they did patch that. It's still weird though. For example, there's a character named Naito in Japanese. Now in the localization, you'd expect it to be Knight, but no, it just stays as Naito. It's technically correct, but pretty lazy localization wise. Overall, besides the oddities, the translation does its job post-patch. If only they localized baseball, because these stats are nonsense to me. Now that we've gotten localization out of the way, I want to talk about this UI. It's pretty clunky. It's like if Sakurai UI had a baby with modern sports game UI. Nothing is in the right place and everything is just different ways to play the same mode. However, it's hard to say if this is the fault of poor localization or from a design standpoint. From here, we have a few modes to choose from. The online, which we'll talk about later, and baseball modes for going against CPU, including a tournament mode. Starting a free play game, I really love when sports games copy the graphics of actual sports broadcasting. It's really fun, and this game does it pretty well. It doesn't go too far with it like being showed a Snickers ad in the loading screen, WWE. Graphically, this game is okay. It's a Switch game, so I can't fault it too much, but it is pretty bizarre seeing a pretty realistic field, and then this is on the screen. I think the game could do with a bit more of a cartoony look overall, but The game on the whole looks really nice. I think the mocap animations you can say are a bit weird looking, but honestly, I think it gives these models a lot of charm. Also, the soundtrack is great. It's not like Xenoblade level best soundtrack ever, but it's really good and helps the baseball feel a bit more lively. Finally, the baseball gameplay. There are a few modes you could play, but mainly I'll be talking about online and tournament, because they're the only ones that aren't really just baseball. Well, they are, but you know what I mean. Before we do though, how does the baseball feel? The baseball is fun. The biggest gameplay problem I have is honestly just that everything is pretty poorly explained. When I was playing this for this video, I had a hard time readjusting to the controls after not playing it for like a year. It also just doesn't make sense sometimes. Like to run to first base, it's the A button. Until you have someone in bases, then it's X, and A is suddenly going back. I played for like 2 hours and I couldn't wrap my head around it. Maybe it's just rust, but I feel like the whole system just kinda blows. My last major negative with the gameplay is fielding. I never got it to work. It always chooses the worst possible character I could possibly control at that moment. And I think that's about it for my major negatives, so if you're thinking of playing this game competitively, well, good luck, it's dead. But besides that, it could be a tad bit frustrating. One small detail about gameplay I loved is how batting works. You have to try and guess where the ball is going, which is already pretty fun. It makes hitting it really satisfying. But what I liked even more is the R button. Hitting the R button makes your batting range basically non-existent, but in exchange, your batting power becomes much stronger. This mechanic is so good. It makes it so satisfying to hit a big hitter. In Mario Baseball, a home run is more on timing, but here, you have to aim. Hit that ball perfectly. And I think it's the perfect way to translate what real baseball players probably feel like. I don't know, I'm not one. Pitching is also pretty fun. You get to choose your pitch and where it'll go. Some have curves to account for and things like that. It's not nearly as satisfying as batting, but it's still pretty fun. It makes me feel conniving whenever I throw a curveball just barely entering the box, and my opponent foolishly thinks it's a ball and not a strike, and doesn't swing. Fielding is torture, yes, but I think all baseball games are kinda like that. I don't know, I only play the ones with cartoon characters. And casually, I love this game. It's pretty fast paced, and if you play it with a friend, it's a lot of fun. I love all the little characters they have. It's very charming and a lot of fun to build your little team of freaks. It's just a very good turn on and chat game. The online was fun too back when it was active, and it was fairly functional. You have an avatar which you can't play as even though it shares the same model, and it would be a lot of fun, but whatever. You can also type special messages to appear when you get in a match, which adds a bit of personal touch, and makes it fun to pop up and read. Nowadays obviously it's a bit hard to find a match, but when you did, you would have a pretty smooth experience. The last unique mode is a tournament mode, which acts like tournament mode in any game would. However, if you are just single player, you can play every round, which is fun. It also lets you skip ahead and choose a winner, which is good for convenience. I also like how you can choose between a standard bracket and a league bracket, which will function closer to real baseball. That's it though, tournaments aren't really anything all that interesting. So that brings us to why is this game closing? What even brought us to the situation of Power Pros just not being in the US? Well, unfortunately, the answer is not so pretty. Because it all has to do with the industry, especially when it comes to sports games. They're all a monopoly. Every sports video game equivalent has their popular version, and very little competition comes out. Baseball has MLB The Show, football has Madden, football has FIFA, hockey has NHL, wrestling has WWE, etc, etc. But these are all basically your only option. Or you may say, well Pandee, they just made the better game, the rest got outplayed. While technically that could be true, I mean, at least some are high quality. I like the WWE game because I get to make my own characters and make them fight and everything. The issue, however, is that with no competition, means no innovation, means just no options. The issue arises in two major ways. Firstly is the realism hurting the fun. The goal of most of these games is to give the players the most realistic experience possible, which is fine, I'm glad they exist, but because of their realism, they just don't use the chance to be a bit extra with their gameplay. No special abilities, no wacky character designs. It leaves a lot of casuals who would play games like this not want to play it because they don't want to learn the intricacies of the realistic gameplay. And there's another group this leaves out, which leads me to my next topic on why I don't like modern sports games. Inclusivity. Sports should be for everyone. And if you're a girl who just got her first console in elementary school, and you're doing baseball and PE class, oh, let's play baseball on the Nintendo Switch. And the only options are MLB The Show basically. MLB The Show has no options for playing as a woman besides for one mode. And that mode was just added in 2024, so it's very recent. It's not just MLB, all of these either have very recently or not at all added women in the sport. Which is great that some have added it, don't get me wrong, but why did it take this long? Hell, WWE had it all the way back up until the early 2010s, when 2K started making them.
Come Tuesday?
I bring this up because I get why MLB doesn't do it. WWE did before because they already had a woman division, but the MLB is more focused on men's baseball. However, because MLB The Show is so popular, there's just very little competition when it comes to sports games that do include everyone else. There should be an alternative game for more inclusiveness. A game for women who want to play as women, or non-binary people who want to play as creatures or non-gender specific characters. And it used to be Nintendo. They would make sports games all the time. Wii Sports, the Mario sports games on Wii are pretty good at this. And that's great, but on modern consoles, Nintendo has basically only made Mario Golf and Mario Tennis, with a singular football game, which means that the rest of them just don't get any alternatives. I think it would be great for Nintendo to start making baseball games, wrestling games, hockey games, American football games, etc. It would be really helpful in bringing up interest in sports for children of all genders. And this is where Power Pros finally comes back into the picture. Mechanic-wise, sure, it stays pretty down to earth. Graphically and character-wise, though, it really doesn't. I really appreciate how they let some characters just look crazy in there. Not only that, but there are plenty of women, non-gender specific characters, and creatures so that literally anyone can play as who they want. I think it's great that such a choice exists in a genre of games that really avoids it. And that's a part of why I wanted to see it succeed so bad. I think baseball is fun, but I don't care about the MLB, and sluggers I've played to death, so something new that I could also play with friends was so refreshing. But because of how the industry rolls, most people stuck with MLB, leaving Power Pros in the dust here in the West. All I can hope for is that next time they try putting Power Pros in the West, it's a bit more of a success. We could use some healthy competition and inclusivity in the very limited world of sports games. They get a lot of flack in gaming spaces, but sports games can be really fun. Except American football, the gameplay of that is kind of a lot. We just don't have a lot of sports games that are purely gameplay focused, or are very inclusive, which I think gives people the idea that sports games can't be fun. Hell, one of the most popular games of all time, Wii Sports, it's all sports. So I hope I've inspired all of you to try out some sports games that aren't just from the main group, and especially try Power Pros if it ever comes back to the West. It's not perfect, but it's a lot of fun. I'm really sad that I had to see it delisted, but I'm glad I got to talk about it either way. I thought it was a really good niche release on the Switch. Speaking of, I have plenty of niche and underrated Switch games I'd love to make videos on. So if you want more content like this, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And hype the video if you have that option. I don't know if that's still an option, people kind of stopped saying it, but you know, if it's there. For now though, this and Mario Tennis put me in a sports mood, so time to beg even harder for Mario Baseball on Switch 2!